The Lemon Twigs, A Dream Is All We Know, album review, let's chat about it. Hey friends, what's going on? John here from What's Spinning here tonight to chat about this latest album from the Lemon Twigs, indie rock band based out of Long Island, based out of my hometown of Hicksville, so I guess that means they're kind of my hometown heroes, which is weird to think about. But even besides that, I have been following their music since the early days pretty closely. Their first album, their debut album, Do Hollywood, the Lemon Twigs Do Hollywood, was not into it. And honestly, after all these years, I'm still not that into a lot of it, especially songwriting wise. I just feel like they've, come such a long way since then. Early back in those days, I just felt like this was just another indie band trying to be, the next of Montreal, or just stuck in their Beatles phase. It wasn't for me. But with their next album, Go to School, I was starting to come around to their sound a little bit more. I thought the singles here were really good, and I did appreciate how far the band pushed themselves. Not only that, they were writing really catchy hooks. Now, vocal-wise, this was not always the prettiest album. Also, narrative-wise, this album was really weird and just bizarre at times, and it wasn't always for me, but still, I was coming around to their style. Now, their Songs for the General Public album, I really liked this thing. I thought this was the band's best crop of songs to date. The singles were here, between Moon and Fight and Hell on Wheels and The One. I thought this was a handful of the band's best work to date. Now, with their last album, Everything Harmony, it did seem to me like all eyes were on the band more than ever. And while I, wasn't as into it as some others, I felt like this was still a very tasteful collection of tunes, and the band's songwriting had gotten better than ever. That was apparent. Now, this time around, I at first thought that this was really soon to be dropping an album since they just dropped one last year. But with each passing single, I was nothing short of impressed with what I was hearing. I honestly think that these 4 singles dropped here I like almost better than anything on Everything Harmony, and honestly, I think the Lemon Twigs just dropped their truly great album. This album starts off with My Golden Years, and right off the bat, how is this done so right? I love the upbeat riff. I love how carefree it is. The nods to power pop are here as well. And honestly, I really just love the sense of urgency that we get on this track. There's a great energy to it. It might be the best pop rock single I've heard all year, and maybe even last year as well. This hook is just easily one of the best the band has ever penned. You're going to get to hear that a lot on this review too. Yeah, the band just upped their songwriting so much this time around, and I'm so happy to hear it. Great single. Also really do love They Don't Know How to Fall in Place. I love the sort of quaint, old school singer-songwriter vibe to this track. Was another single, and I've loved it since it dropped. And honestly, I feel like the band has never felt this natural in their own element. Like I said, in the early days of the project, I thought they were just another indie band with their heads stuck in their Beatles phase, but they are sounding more right than ever. And another thing that I just love to see the band just taking more advantage of are the harmonies, because throughout most of this project, they're popping pretty hard. Everything about this track is just so joyous and colorful. That synth line after the hook, too, that is money. Church Bells is a hell of a deep cut, one of my favorite here. The band's ability to write instantaneous, catchy material is really impressing me more and more. This track is just so adorable and sweet on the ears and charming. And it's memorable one-liners and a really just incredibly infectious guitar solo. You have a winner. Also really do love this album's title track, A Dream Is All We Know. It's one of the more freaky and genuinely weird and sort of psychedelic tracks here. And because of that, gonna be honest, it did take a little bit longer to kind of warm up to. Of all the singles, this one took me the longest to really love. But man, does this track ever come together so nicely, and the harmonies continue to be tremendous. Honestly, the vocal work, just that alone throughout this whole album, is easily the band's most impressive offering. Yeah, honestly, I'm impressed with a lot of this album, even if I do still have some big ugh moments that just make me kind of groan and roll my eyes. Like Sweet Vibration, for example, this track for me is easily the worst track here. I mean, I actually do enjoy the very elegant, very classy instrumental. That just sounds, where it should be. However, the Lemon Twigs kind of dropped the ball in other areas. It's just a little sloppy. The vocals are not up to snuff. And songwriting-wise, this track is just a little all over the place. Honestly, it sounds like more than anything that they're trying to rip off the early days of Montreal. Also, the hook just is not for me. It's easily the least memorable here. Also, a lot of the same feelings on Ember Days. And it's frustrating because a lot of the great elements to this album do show up here. It's very sweet and carefree. But this time around, it's just done with so much less confidence. Listening to this, I get a lot of the same feelings that I did in the early days of the Lemon Twigs. And Rock On over and over as a finale, I'm kind of torn on it. On one hand, I mean, it really does just sound like I don't know, like a cover. It just sounds so much less organic and interesting and new than all the rest of the material here. But I do like the, heavier approach. That's very interesting. Also, the second half of this track is a lot more compelling, especially with that horn section. So yeah, it's certainly not the worst track here, but it's definitely one of the more in the middle of the road cuts here. But outside of that, I'm really proud of the boys to see them grow as much as they have been, and I can't wait to see what they're doing next. In the eyes of a girl, I mean, God, I grew up in a Beach Boys house. This is like activating a damn cheat code. I mean, this is a very old school, kind of surf-tinged pop rock ballad, and my God, it is done really well. I mean, mostly because they've grown so much as songwriters and have become so confident with their sound. It just shines so brightly. I think it's my favorite deep cut here. Also really love If You and I Are Not Wise. I mean, once again, the harmonies. I'm a sucker for them, and this track just has so many more decent ones. And from a song structure stance, the Lemon Twigs continue to pump out really interesting tunes. I think this is easily their best crop of songs to date. The hook, the Sunshine melodies, is just so likable. And how can I love her more? Of all the singles that were dropped from this album, honestly, this is the one that caught me off guard the most, and I don't mean that in a bad way. I mean, this track is just, it is adorable, and they do this sort of sunny, psychedelic pop 60s sound so much justice. It's so full of heart, it's so well performed, the horns are a really nice touch as well, great tune. I just feel like this time around also, a lot more of the smaller details are in place. I also love how genuinely weird the end of this album gets, like Peppermint Roses. Once again, this is the band breaching out into a much weirder sound. And trust me, it's done with a lot of genuine quirkiness, and it comes off so well. I hope we hear more of this. And despite it being one of the freakier tunes here, it doesn't stray too far from the same kind of song structures, and the harmonies still pop. And I should have known right from the start, I really do love this track as well. The way they just keep teasing and toying a more psychedelic sound, it's done in a really great way. But it's still very playful, easy to take in. So is a lot of this record. For me and my taste, I think this is easily the band's best crop of songs to date. I mean, song structure-wise, lyric-wise, and vocal-wise, they are more comfortable with this throwback sound than ever. And even on their last record, I don't think it's as consistent as this new one. Yeah, for me, I'm feeling a very light 8 on this album, but let me know what you all think down below. If you liked the video, be sure to give us a like, give us a subscribe, and let me know down below what you would like for me to chat about in the future. And until next time, have a great day, friends.